In 1963, archaeologists working above the Dead Sea came across a strange clay jar. Inside were 6 dark brown seeds. They turned out to be nearly 2,000 years old. They appeared to have been dead for a long time, and for the next 40 years, nothing happened to suggest otherwise. But in 2005, botanist Elaine Soloway decided to plant one of them. What happened next, no one expected. The seed germinated. Then, very quickly, a larger problem emerged. All the trees turned out to be male. That is how one of the most ambitious attempts to revive a tree the world had considered lost forever began. The Judean date palm disappeared from the face of the earth more than a millennium ago. It once covered the entire Jordan Valley and the shores of the Dead Sea. Ancient writers described it separately from other varieties. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, wrote about their size, 6 of them spanning the distance from the elbow to the fingertip. Herod the Great sent these dates to Rome as personal gifts to the emperor. They were considered medicinal for diseases of the lungs, the heart, for colds. Pliny wrote about their flavor specifically, that their defining quality was a juicy richness and an extraordinarily sweet wine-like taste resembling honey. Egyptian dates could spoil within weeks. Judean dates kept for months, which is precisely why they could be loaded onto ships and sent across the Roman Empire. This was an export commodity, not local food. The Hebrew word for date is tamar, the name King David gave his daughter. Then came centuries of war. The Romans cut down the groves. After them came the Crusaders and the Mamluks. By the 19th century, travelers reaching the banks of the Jordan wrote of scattered, stunted palms whose fruit was barely fit for livestock. By the 20th century, the variety had vanished entirely. What remained were a name, some texts, and 6 seeds in a clay jar. In 1963, archaeologist Yigael Yadin assembled a team of volunteers from around the world, 1,200 people, to excavate the fortress of Masada above the Dead Sea. They dug for 2 seasons, through 1965. Among the finds were sandals, coins, scraps of food, fragments of scrolls, and near the entrance to the northern palace, beside the remains of ancient storerooms, a small clay jar. Inside, 6 seeds. The seeds were passed to botanical archaeologist Mordecai Kislev of Bar Ilan University in Tel Aviv. He documented the find, conducted a basic analysis, and placed them in his desk drawer. 6 seeds, each the size of a thumb, dark brown, hard, to all appearances completely dead. From the outside, they looked no different from any other organic material recovered from an excavation and sent to an archive. There they stayed for 40 years. No one believed they could germinate. The endosperm, the seed's nutrient reserve, was assumed to have died long ago. But the fact that the seeds had survived at all was itself almost impossible to explain. The Dead Sea lies 423 meters below sea level. It is the lowest point of land on the planet. The atmosphere above it is the densest on Earth, and it filters the cosmic radiation that, over millennia, destroys organic material. Humidity in the region is below 20%. Summer temperatures exceed 40 degrees Celsius, but the clay jar in a dark storeroom beneath the rubble of Masada had kept the seeds in a stable, dry state without any fluctuation. Scientists writing in Science in 2008 noted that these conditions alone could have preserved a seed's embryo alive, but no one had expected that to actually be the case. In 2004, Dr. Sarah Salon, director of the Natural Medicine Center at Jerusalem's Hadassah Hospital, read about the germination of a 1,300-year-old lotus seed. For years, she had been collecting ancient recipes from archives, and dates appeared in them again and again as medicine. For lung disease, for weakness, to support labor. She wasn't interested in the tree, she was interested in whether those effects were real. The seeds were her opportunity to test what physicians had written 2,000 years earlier. She approached hospital administration for permission to use the Masada seeds for research. Permission was granted, but without any support. Don't ask for money, don't ask for anything, and don't embarrass us. Salon asked for the seeds and received them, the same set that had spent 40 years in a university desk drawer. She brought them to Elaine Soloway, a botanist at Kibbutz Keturah who specialized in growing rare plants in the desert. Soloway knew what nearly impossible meant, which is why she initially refused. "You want me to do what?" she said on the phone. But then she agreed, on one condition: no public statements until there was a result. Solon had come from California to Israel in 1971 and had not left Kibbutz Keturah since. In 1975, she had established the first research garden, 50 kilometers north of Eilat, in the middle of the Arava Desert, where average annual rainfall is under 30 millimeters. She grew marula trees from the Sudan Sahel zone of Africa, argan trees from Morocco, Tibetan medicinal herbs. The Dalai Lama visited her garden in person. Soloway had received the Ben Gurion Prize for the development of the Negev. The woman who said, "You want me to do what?" was a woman who understood the price of doubt. First, Solon soaked the seeds in warmed water to restore their capacity to absorb liquid. For this, she used a baby bottle warmer, a device that normally sits in a nursery. It maintained a stable temperature of 35 degrees and kept the water from overheating. The seeds were placed inside and slowly, over several hours, absorbed moisture. Then came a 6-hour soak in a solution of gibberellic acid, which stimulates embryo growth. Then another 6 hours in a rooting hormone solution. And finally 12 hours in an organic water-based fertilizer. The entire process took nearly a full day before the seeds went into soil. Soloway was not improvising. She moved methodically through each step, knowing that if anything went wrong at any point, there might not be a second chance. Only 3 seeds remained from the first batch. After this preparation, she planted them in sterile soil and placed the pot in a greenhouse. On January 25, 2005, the pot went onto a shelf. Nothing happened for several weeks. On the 8th week, in March 2005, the soil cracked. A green shoot pushed through the gap. The first leaves had white spots, but they gradually disappeared. The plant was coming alive. In 2008, the Guinness World Records confirmed Methuselah was the oldest seed in the world to germinate with human assistance. But between germination and the point where anything could be concluded lay years of careful observation. At 15 months, Soloway transplanted Methuselah from a small pot into a larger one. The plant had outgrown it. At 26 months, she documented that development was proceeding normally. Leaf proportions, growth rate, trunk structure, all consistent with how modern date palms grow. This was itself a surprise. No one had known whether a 2,000-year dormancy might have left hidden defects in the plant, in its metabolism, its cellular structure, its capacity for normal reproduction. In parallel, part of the seeds from the same batch was sent to the University of Zurich for radiocarbon dating and analysis of possible bioactive properties. Tests were conducted for antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antimalarial, and antioxidant activity. The results of these studies have not yet been fully published. They are part of a broader project on ancient medicine. Methuselah himself grew in a guarded greenhouse throughout this period. His exact location was kept secret for several years. Soloway didn't want to take the risk. One person with bad intentions could have destroyed the only living specimen of a variety that hadn't existed for 1,000 years. Only in 2011, when the tree had strengthened and was moved into open ground, was it shown publicly. By that point, 6 years of cultivation under controlled conditions, constant monitoring, no guarantees. Soloway described the period simply: she just watched it grow and wrote things down. If something had gone wrong, there would have been no second chance. No seeds from that first batch remained. The first victory didn't last long. In November 2011, Methuselah was transplanted into open ground at Kibbutz Keturah, and then he flowered, and genetic analysis showed a male. Date palms are dioecious. Without a female, there would be no fruit. Methuselah produced only pollen. He could pollinate modern females, and did, beginning in 2015, but that would not revive the Judean variety. A female with the same ancient genetics was needed. That meant starting over. There was another complication. Soloway couldn't simply plant new seeds and wait. She didn't know how long germination might take, whether it would happen at all, or whether the trees would reach sexual maturity. A date palm takes 5 to 10 years from germination to first flowering, which meant that even if a seed sprouted, the answer to the question, male or female, could be years away. Soloway planted 6 new seeds between 2011 and 2014, and waited. Salin contacted archaeologists who had spent decades excavating in the Judean desert at Masada, Qumran, the caves of Wadi Kelt and Wadi Makuk. Each checked their archives, sought permission from their institution, and passed on what they found. In total, 32 seeds from 4 different sites were gathered, dated to between 1,800 and 2,400 years old. One detail is worth pausing on, because it's easy to miss. Israel's modern date industry has no connection to the ancient variety at all. When the kibbutzim began planting their first groves in the 20th century, local palms no longer existed. Saplings were imported from Morocco, Egypt, Iraq, Tunisia. The tree that today produces half the world's medjool dates and is worth billions of shekels in the Israeli market is genetically unrelated to what once grew here. The 7 trees at Kibbutz Keturah are the only living bearers of the original genetics. Everything else is an import. Soloway repeated the procedure, and of the 32 seeds, 6 germinated: Adam, Jonah, Uriel, Boaz, Judith, Hannah. Genetic analysis showed Judith and Hannah to be female, but Judith never flowered. Only Hannah. And here a detail emerged. Hannah's seed came from Wadi Makuk. Radiocarbon dating showed it to be 175 years older than Methuselah's seed. The tree that was to bear fruit carried genetics older still. In March 2020, Hannah flowered. Soloway collected pollen from Methuselah and applied it to the inflorescence. The fruit developed in paper bags to protect it from birds. She checked each bag. The dates gained weight slowly. In summer, they began changing color from green to a tawny reddish-brown. On September 7, 2020, they harvested the first crop. 111 dates, each weighing between 15 and 18 grams. Soloway took one. "If they had tasted terrible, I don't know what I would have done," she said afterward. "What would I have said? That people in ancient times didn't know what a good date was?" The flavor turned out to resemble medjool, but drier, less sweet, with a honey-like aftertaste. Preliminary laboratory analysis showed elevated antioxidant levels compared to modern varieties. A full study of the nutritional and medicinal properties was still underway. Most of those 111 fruits were sent to laboratories. A few were shared with people who had been there. The following year, 2021, Hannah's flowers were pollinated simultaneously with pollen from Methuselah, Adam, and Jonah. The harvest came to nearly 700 dates. Genetic analysis of all 7 trees produced an unexpected result. They are not all the same variety. The Judean date palm in antiquity was not a monoculture but an assemblage of different genetic lines, some related to Egyptian varieties, some to varieties from the Persian Gulf. The ancient farmers along the Jordan had been engaged in sophisticated, deliberate selection long before science had a word for it. A 2021 analysis in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences added another layer to this picture. The oldest trees, Methuselah and Hannah, whose seeds date to the 4th through 1st centuries BCE, are genetically closest to modern varieties from Western Asia, meaning Arabia. The younger trees, Boaz, Jonah, Uriel, whose seeds date to the 1st and 2nd centuries CE, already show clear traces of North African genetics. This is a chronology of trade. The closer to the Roman period, the more Egyptian and Moroccan genes appear. Conquerors and merchants carried more than armies. They carried pollen, and the trees along the Jordan absorbed it into their genetics. The size of the seeds also confirmed what Pliny had written. The ancient Judean seeds are larger than those of modern varieties, and seed size typically correlates with fruit size. This means the dates that Soloway and Salin harvested from Hannah are probably smaller than what was eaten in Herod's time. The true size and flavor of the ancient fruit may still lie ahead, if the ancient trees can eventually be crossed only with each other, without the admixture of modern genetics. Salin had pursued the Judean palms because of their ancient medicinal properties. Classical medicine attributed to these dates effects against depression, lung disease, infections, and even support during labor. Whether clinical research will confirm these properties remains unknown. Full trials are still ongoing. Meanwhile, Methuselah remains one of a kind. If he dies, his genetic line disappears with him. Tissue culture of Hannah, which would yield hundreds of thousands of genetically identical saplings, exists so far only as a plan, and there are no more seeds. The 32 found between 1963 and 1991 were the last. 7 trees grown entirely from ancient seeds now stand at Kibbutz Keturah. Methuselah is over 3 meters tall and produces pollen every year. Hannah is the fruiting female. Adam and Jonah are spare males. Judith is female but has not yet flowered. Boaz and Uriel are male. The genetic analysis of the 7 trees, published in Science Advances in 2020 and in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2021, produced an unexpected result. They are not of one genetic type. Among the 7 are lineages connected to Egypt, to Arabia, to Babylon. The Judean date palm in antiquity was not a uniform variety. It was the product of millennia of deliberate selection, the crossing of local lines with those imported from across the Middle East and North Africa. The ancient farmers along the Jordan understood agricultural genetics long before science found a name for it. Salon is exploring tissue culture, cloning Hannah under laboratory conditions to produce hundreds of thousands of genetically identical saplings. If this succeeds, the Judean palm could return to the Jordan Valley as a commercial crop. An Arabian institution has already begun discussing limited sales of the dates through the kibbutz guest house, but there is a limit that cannot be crossed. The 32 seeds Salon gathered from 4 archaeological sites are all the physical material that remains. 6 of them germinated, the rest did not. There are no more seeds of the same provenance. If Hannah or Methuselah die, the genetic line they carry will disappear again, permanently this time. Salon said in a 2020 interview, "In these troubled times, when species are disappearing and pollution is growing, to bring something back to life from centuries of sleep is symbolic. To pollinate and grow these incredible dates is like a ray of light in a dark time." A Roman coin struck around 70 CE to mark the conquest of Judea showed a woman weeping beneath a date palm, a symbol of defeat, an ending. That same palm appears today on the modern Israeli 10-shekel coin. Judith and Boaz have not yet flowered, neither has Uriel. How many of them will prove to be female is unknown. How many will be able to bear fruit is unknown as well. The project is not finished, and there are no more seeds.